Hey folks, welcome back. Today I'm diving into an epic showdown between Chairman Jim Jordan and Ranking Member Jerry Nadler over the Judges Act in the Rules Committee. Buckle up, because this debate is heating up. Alright, so Jim Jordan is all for the Judges Act. He's highlighting the massive backlog in federal district courts with a staggering 750,000 pending cases. His argument? We need 66 new judgeships over the next decade to tackle this issue. Jordan insists it's bipartisan and fair, ensuring these judgeships go to regions that really need them, like Utah, Texas, and California. Transparency and effectiveness are key here, folks, but hold on.
Large caseloads for judges in certain judicial districts throughout the country. As of June 30th, 2024, there were nearly 750,000 pending cases in federal district courts nationwide, with each judge handling an average of 554 weighted filings. Congress has not authorized new district court judgeships in more than 20 years. This stagnation has left our courts overwhelmed, with many Americans waiting far too long for their day in court. This bill offers a practical solution to the crisis. It follows recommendations of the Judicial Conference and provides for 66 new district court judgeships in jurisdictions that need them the most over the next 10-year period. This bipartisan bill is designed with foresight and political fairness, staggering the additional judgeships over 6 phases from 2025 to 2035. This measured approach spans 3 presidential terms, 6 Congresses, ensuring that no single political party is guaranteed an advantage. Positions are distributed equitably among blue and red states and targets areas where the need is greatest. Additionally, the Judges Act addresses unique regional needs. For example, it establishes new locations for federal court proceedings in Utah, Texas, and California, making the judicial system more accessible for those residing in remote areas. The bill also includes measures to ensure Congress can remain effectively engaged in making sure our judicial system has the resources it needs to serve our country's needs. It requires the Judicial Conference to publicly release its biennial recommendations, along with the methods and data used to determine where new judgeships are warranted. Additionally, the GAO will evaluate the efficiency of court operations and examine detention space requirements to ensure resources are used effectively. The bill's modest but necessary investment to ensure our courts can deliver justice without unnecessary delay. Indeed, the ability of our federal judiciary to deliver timely, impartial justice is essential to maintaining public trust in our legal system. Madam Chair, the Judges Act is a vital step towards strengthening our judiciary, ensuring that justice is not just a promise but a reality. The Senate has already recognized the importance of this goal, passing this bill unanimously. I look forward to answering any questions you may have and yield back.
Thank you very much. Ranking Member Nadler, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, we are here today because of a broken promise. Earlier this year, I proudly joined my colleagues, Court Subcommittee Chairman Issa and Ranking Member Johnson, in introducing the Judges Act. For decades, Congress has been at an impasse on the question of how to create new judgeships while not knowingly giving new appointees to the other party. This bipartisan bicameral bill would have broken that logjam by having both sides agree to take a chance on their own party winning or not winning the White House. Under this legislation, we all promise to give the next 3 unknown presidents a certain number of judgeships. Because no one can tell the future, we were all at an equal disadvantage. But for this deal to work, the bill had to be passed before Election Day. On November 6th, we would all know who the next president would be, and the deal would be broken. The Senate did its part and passed the bill last summer. But House Republican leadership was unwilling to take a chance on their own candidate and refused to bring the bill to the floor until now, after the election. Thus, the agreement central to the Judges Act, that the opportunity to appoint new judges be given to an unknown future president, or really to 3 unknown future presidential terms, is now broken. But that is not stopping our Republican colleagues from taking advantage of all the senators and House members who took a chance on bipartisanship. Unfortunately, we are back where we have always been every time a bill to create new judgeships comes before Congress, with one party seeking a tactical advantage over the other. Since Donald Trump demonstrated during his first term that he sees the federal courts as nothing more than an extension of his political operation, and he has already stacked them with dangerously unqualified and ideological appointees, giving him more power to appoint additional judges would be irresponsible. Under the allocation set forth in the Judges Act, he would get 25 judgeship nominations on top of the 100-plus spots on the judicial bench expected to open up over the next 4 years. Donald Trump has made clear that he intends to expand the power of the presidency, and giving him 25 new judges to appoint gives him one more tool at his disposal to do that. Many of the people elevated by Donald Trump to the federal bench in his first term were not just conservative-leaning judges. They have proven to be ultra-conservative ideologues who have perverted the law to benefit Donald Trump and his conservative causes. They've also repeatedly been criticized for their lack of understanding of the law, for their inability to provide speedy decision-making, and for their repeated errors in judgment. We should not compound this problem by giving him yet more nominations to fill. I have long argued for more federal judges. 20 years ago, we were already overdue, and the problem has only gotten worse. But Republicans and Democrats, quite reasonably, have never wanted to give an opposing party's president more power. So presidential administration after presidential administration went by with no new judgeships created. The Judges Act would have broken that impasse if it had been passed before the presidential election this year, such as the Senate did. The genius behind the Judges Act and the deal to pass it was that it was devoid of the politics that have plagued the federal judgeship election process. We took recommendations made by the Nonpartisan Judicial Conference of the United States. The nominees were spread out over 3 presidential administrations and 6 Congresses. And the judge allotments would begin with a future unknown, quote-unquote, next president. In August, senators from both sides of the aisle joined together and unanimously passed the Judges Act. But when S. 4199 arrived in the House, Republican leadership refused to touch it. As the days counted down before the election, my colleagues and I begged them to take it up. We explained the stakes. They knew that bipartisan support for creating desperately needed new judgeships would only exist if the bill were passed into law before November 5th, but they refused. The Republican leadership was uninterested in taking the chance that their candidate would not win in November. It was a fair fight, and they wanted no part of it. Now, here they are today, during the narrow window when the central promise behind the Judges Act is broken, trying to force this bill through the House on a partisan basis. What we are seeing today is a tragic breakdown in what should be a bipartisan process. I thank my colleagues on both sides of the aisle who fought for this bill over the summer and in September. Our work together reminds me that there can be opportunities for collegiality and collaboration across the aisle. This good, honest work is even more striking when juxtaposed with the political gamesmanship we are seeing this week, as the majority takes a nonpartisan bill and perverts it toward their own ends. 1 month and 11 days from now will be January 20th, 2025. On Inauguration Day, we will no longer know who the next president will be. And I would be happy to take up the promise behind the Judges Act that day and to give the additional judicial appointments to unknown presidents yet to come. Until then, I must urge my colleagues to vote no on S. 4199. I appreciate the opportunity to testify today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you to both of you for being here today. I have no questions at this time. Would like to yield to my colleague from Colorado, Mr. Mikos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, let me just say thank you to the ranking member for his many years of service to our institution, for his distinguished service on the House Judiciary Committee, and his leadership. And I believe we all are grateful, and I'm certainly among those who believes that the ranking member has made an indelible impression and impact on this institution that I believe will last generations. And so I want to make sure the ranking member knows my sentiments. I want to give the chairman an opportunity to respond to the ranking member and perhaps expound a bit and give us some understanding about why House Republicans waited 2 months, 3 months, I suppose, after this bill was sent by the United States Senate to the House to take it up.
I would just say this, the ranking member, and I too appreciate Mr. Nadler's service to the committee. The ranking member in his continued service to the committee, mentioned fairness. Judicial Conference says we need it. Everyone knows we need it. It came out of the Senate unanimously. The first 22 judges that President Trump will get a chance to nominate, I believe 10 or 11 come from states where both senators are Democrats, and they will weigh in on the process. I don't know how you make it any fairer than what it is. If all those first states had all Republican senators, and maybe you have an argument, but I think this is as fair as it's going to get. And again, it's spaced out over a 10-year time period. We don't know who the next president's going to be in 2028. We don't know who they're going to be in 2032. We just don't know. That's why it's spaced out over 10 years.
Let me try this another way. Democrats and Republicans in the United States Senate, Senator Young from Indiana, Senator Padilla from California, came together, passed on a unanimous basis legislation to address the judicial crisis facing our courts. They did so in advance of the 2024 presidential election with the understanding that this legislation needed to be signed into law for the reasons that the ranking member articulated. They sent that bill here to the House. I believe it was received on August 6th of this year. We're taking it up now in December, long after the election. Why?
We just didn't get to the legislation.
Just didn't get to it.
Yeah, it's going to take. We didn't get to the legislation. That doesn't change, but it doesn't change the fact that the American.
When did you make the announcement that we'd take this bill up?
It doesn't change the fact that the American people.
When did you make this announcement?
I don't remember making an announcement. We take the bill up.
Well, I believe you did an interview a few weeks ago, right after the election, right after Donald Trump won the presidency, and you said, "Oh, you know what? we got to get this bill done. We're going to get it to the floor."
Well, I think I was asked about the legislation. We got to get it done.
Just coincidence.
Came out of the Senate unanimous. The American people spoke. President Trump won the popular vote, won all 7 swing states, won 30 of the 50 electoral college
I will just say, Mr.
states in the
Chairman,
electoral college. I mean,
that is one interesting coincidence that the bill comes to the House on August 6th of this year. It comes to the House on a unanimous basis from the United States Senate. Everybody's for it. Everyone says we've got to get this done.
Well, not everyone's for it. It sounds like you're against it.
We've got to get this done before the presidential election. And lo and behold,
because you don't like what the people said?
The chairman of the committee
You don't like what the people said?
We're not going to get it to the floor. We're going to wait until the presidential election so that once we know
tell me what
our preferred candidate has won the election, we'll bring it to the floor.
I would ask the fine gentleman from Colorado, has something changed in the legislation since August to December? It's still the same bill.
I appreciate the chairman's position. Of course, Ranking Member Nadler.
The whole point of the legislation and the reason the Senate passed it back on, August 6th, was that no one then knew who would win the next election. Yes, the American people spoke. Yes, the American people gave Donald Trump 4 years. But that is why we cannot pass the legislation now, because we know who won the election. And the idea was we should pass legislation in which nobody knows who wins the election, so that we'll see what happens. That was the idea. Now, Mr. Issa and I begged the chairman to schedule this vote as soon as possible, before the election. He didn't do it. Why didn't he do it? Because I presume, I'm sure that had Kamala Harris won the election, we wouldn't be talking about this bill now.
Of course.
And only because Donald Trump won the election are we now talking about this bill.
Precisely. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you. I would yield to my good friend from South Carolina, Mr. Norman. Thank you. I would yield to Ms. Ledger-Fernandez for any questions she might have.
No, sir.
Thank you very much. I feel like am I having any takers? I would yield to Mr. Roy.
I'm sorry. I'm taking. Just really quick, Mr. Chairman, to your point, is it not true that a significant number of states and districts across the country, regardless of their political makeup, red state, blue state, whatever, get judges under this legislation?
Yes, and I would. Yes, that's definitely the case.
Right. In other words, in the conversations and the debates between Democrats and Republicans on something that is inherently political, despite the fact we pretend that the judiciary is not political, as evidenced by this exact situation that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle don't want to put forward more judges now that they know President Trump has been elected for 4 years. So the non-political judiciary is clearly inherently political. So the question here is, there was a debate and legislation was put forward, general agreement to put it forward. and it was designed to create new judgeships throughout the country. And I frankly don't have it. It's 60-something judges. Is that what it is? 66 judges. And I don't know, to be honest with you, how that's parsed out. I couldn't tell you whether, I know Texas gets some.
Yep.
And I know there's other states, but I don't know whether there's any, for example, in the gentleman from Colorado and the gentleman lady from New Mexico. I don't know how they're parsed out. My point is, and it could be tilted one way or the other.
California gets 7,
Okay.
and again, two Democrats. And I actually had Republicans come up to be concerned that they actually wanted to look to amend the legislation because they were concerned about all the states where both senators are Democrat. And we all know how this process works. Democrat senators weigh in with the administration when they're determining who are going to be federal judges in those respective states.
So, I mean, I think suffice it to say, I mean, and the ranking member said that that's why this bill should not pass, is we now know the result of the election. But if the judges are needed, the judges are needed. True? Is that right?
Accurate.
I mean, would the ranking member agree, regardless of the ranking member's concerns about the extent to which we now have 4 years of a president not of the liking of the ranking member, that in fact we still, for purposes of managing the caseload and the workload, say as a former AUSA and appearing before judges, that we do need the judges? Do we all agree on that on a bipartisan basis, that we need the judges?
If you permit me to comment, we need the number of judges. However, President Trump has shown, he bragged that by his 3 appointments, he overturned Roe v. Wade. He said he was going to do it. He did it. So don't tell me it's not political. Now, you may think overturning Roe v. Wade is a good idea or a bad idea, but it was certainly a political idea. He promised to do it. He appointed 3 judges whom he knew would do it. They did it. And that's the way, unfortunately, the process works.
Would the ranking member agree that the truth is, over in the Senate, in particular, between the blue slip policy and the way we handle the circuit judges, that is different than the way we handle the United States Supreme Court? In other words, the local senators have a significant say, and the Judiciary Committee and the Senate have a significant say.
We do not know, Mr. Roy, if President Trump, who has proven to be iconoclastic in many ways, will adhere to that practice or not. He is not bound by it by law. It's custom. He may decide no.
But the truth is, having served as a lawyer in the Senate Judiciary Committee, that is the way that has typically been done. And would the chairman agree that that is the way it's typically been done, that that's the way we would expect it to be done? Obviously, that doesn't mean that a senator gets a hardcore decision point to be the...
Jerry Nadler isn't convinced. He's slamming the delay in passing this bill, accusing Republicans of breaking a bipartisan agreement. Nadler's main beef? The timing of the vote. He says it's been pushed until after the 2024 election, which he claims skews the bill politically. According to Nadler, this delay gives President Trump more judicial appointments, adding to what he calls a conservative bias in the courts. He's worried this could undermine the impartiality of the judiciary. Both Jordan and Nadler agree on one thing: we need more judges to handle the growing backlog. But the crux of their clash is all about the political implications of when and how these new judgeships are distributed. So what's your take on this fiery debate? Are the Republicans playing politics, or is Nadler overreacting? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more deep dives into the latest political battles. Until next time, folks, stay informed and stay engaged.